Okay, here we are. Alt.nerd.obsessive. Worst episode ever.
Hey everybody, welcome to Worst Episode Ever, a podcast about The Simpsons by people who love The Simpsons, about how much we hate The Simpsons. My name is Dan.
My name is Jack.
And we are here today. We are going to be watching and talking about an episode called Bart-Mangled Banner. It is the 21st episode of season 15. I have never seen this episode. Jack, have you seen this one?
Yeah, actually, I suggested this one specifically for you to see. I don't remember a lot of it. I remember thinking it was kind of off the rails. You know, this is fairly early too in the way like crazy.
Yeah, this is 10 years ago.
Yeah, so like the show hadn't completely become this different thing. It was just bad at this point.
Right.
We didn't realize to the full extent how different the show would be.
Yeah.
The main reason I picked this is because despite it being season 15, and I'm sure it's going to be pretty awful, it just has one of my favorite Simpsons jokes, one-liners of all time, including the classic era.
We will find out what that is later.
Yeah, so
in this episode.
That's why I picked it, because to this day I use this line a lot, as if it was a classic line.
Okay, I know nothing about this episode. You mentioned it has something to do with the Patriot Act. Looking very quickly on Wikipedia, it said it aired on the Fox network. So that's all, that's all I know about it.
Right. I'm sure we'll get into all that. You know, I'm sure when the Simpsons they will handle the political with deftness and subtlety.
I'm sure. I'm positive that they will, especially season 15 era.
Yeah. So we're going to watch it. You guys should too, and check back in with us in 22 minutes or so. Or 19 minutes, whatever the episode lengths are.
Exactly. So we'll be back with more Bart-Mangled Banner.
This is we.
I'm Nashcaster, and it's time to butt heads! Bart Simpson, what do you hate most about this country? Is it the freedom?
Nash, I've realized something. I'm the worst kid in the world, and the last thing I deserve is forgiveness. But with a little help from Jesus and our fighting men and women overseas...
All right, so if I hear you correctly, you're saying America is better than Jesus. Do you agree? Before he can answer, do you?
Well, America's not perfect.
So America isn't perfect. Is that why you and your son hate us?
If by us, you mean loudmouth talk show hosts, which everyone seems to be in this country, then yes, I do hate Americans.
Wow, Marge, I'm surprised you haven't been run out of town.
I'll have you know I am very well liked in Springfield.
Well, there you have it. Springfield hates America. Now, coming up after this commercial, I will be talking even louder. Don't miss it.
All right, so that was Bart-Mangled Banner, the season 15 episode from 2004, which was over 10 years ago.
Yeah. That was a pleasant surprise, I think.
In general, yeah, sure.
Well, compared to the other episodes that we've watched.
Right. But definitely like the first 2-3 minutes, it was really funny.
Yeah.
It felt like a season 9.
So let's just jump right into talking about it.
Yeah.
The beginning of this episode is very funny.
Yeah, like the first sequence where Dr. Hibbert, the kids are getting their shots.
Right. The kids are in the car and they're eating ice cream and Homer's throwing kittens at them. And I thought that was pretty funny. And then it turns out they're getting shots and, Hibbert is going to these elaborate lengths to give Bart this shot.
Right.
That was all really good stuff.
Just lots of really good gags and not just laugh out loud funny. They were smart. It really felt like a season 9, if not.
Yeah.
There was a joke right in the beginning where they're spoiling the kids, getting them ready for the needles. They buy them ice cream and everything. And then can we get pets? Can we get cats? And Homer grabs a box of cats and just
him flinging the cats is a little too cartoony.
That felt like a little later.
Yeah.
You know, but then when they realize they're going to the doctor's, he locks the car doors and it does the ominous close up of the door locks and then the air conditioning vent closes. Right. That was just that reminded me of the old kind of humor where they make that ominous.
It felt even like a season 7 or 8.
At points, yeah.
That was this is how good episodes used to open.
Yeah, and when Bart is fighting with using the skeleton to slap, and Marge says, "Put down that hobo skeleton."
Yeah,
and that's a kind of one of those dark where you have to think about it for a second, where with the idea that some homeless guy's body was given to science,
right? Yeah,
and
the skeleton in the office,
like that. It had that dark, smart It's exactly what was been missing from the last
last three episodes we watched. Yeah, and I liked like quick gags that made sense too, that weren't just references like say in the last episode, because they're all afraid of having their shots, all the kids, and Dr. Hibbert is like, okay, Bart, just look out the window, it'll take your mind off. And out the window is the cemetery. And that was very funny.
Yeah, and they did the really old thing that they haven't done forever, where they show a location, and then they have a sound effect that goes with that location.
Yeah,
like how when they show the supermarket, they always have like the shopping cart.
Yep.
Or the bird squawk with the nuclear power plant.
Yeah.
They did like this weird howl.
This
coyote howling.
That was great.
With the pet cemetery.
It was perfect, and that wouldn't have been out of place in like a good season episode.
Yeah, it was surprising. It
surprisingly
surprised
strong.
us more.
Because I was expecting like we said, all I knew was this is about the Patriot Act or whatever. Right. I was expecting a really crap episode,
right? It gets there.
We'll talk about where this episode goes, but the beginning is extremely strong,
really strong.
Even the moment where he gives, or Lisa actually says, oh, it's just a needle, I won't be afraid. And she gets the shot, and then she turns into a little girl, which is something that they don't do often now.
I love when
and
Lisa's
she's like, oh, can I get a lollipop? Yeah, nowadays she's just, the mouthpiece.
Right.
And,
it's great when they make Lisa a little girl. Again.
Yeah, they remember who these characters are and, play to those strengths. I loved it.
And Hibbert was in fine form. He was pretty much the centerpiece of this whole sequence.
Yeah.
And, there was a few moments where it was like a little, you had that new type of humor in there.
You talk about the Dredrick Tatum part?
Well, I like when he gets punched in the face.
That was funny, yeah.
That whole montage, they did one of those song montages that I've been talking about where they play a song, but it fit with this one because...
It made sense because they were playing one way or another, and the whole montage was Hibbert trying to get Bart, and one way or another he's going to give him the shot.
And the jokes were funny.
Yeah, it was funny.
He shoots the needles, and then all the drug addicts come out and
yes,
the needles.
They come out of the cornfield.
Yeah, Dredrick Tatum punches him in the face. It had an energy to it. It wasn't 6 seconds long and then stopped. It didn't feel like they just threw the song in.
Right, the song actually made sense.
Yeah. And I really liked the word... Dr. Hibbert, it seemed like a classic Hibbert line where he's like, welcome to hell, Men's Medical Center.
That was also really funny, yeah. And I liked kind of the end of the montage. Bart's like, oh, well, sorry, Doc. And they're sitting together. And then Barney's voice comes out. It turns out it's Barney in disguise. That was funny. And then they bring out Mo dressed as Dr. Hibbert. And Mo's like, it was fun to be you, but you're not welcome at the library no more.
It's just dark. It's just
way dark.
What did he do in the library?
I love I feel like they went too dark with Mo in like later episodes.
Yeah.
I don't even know what they've been doing with Mo because I've only seen like 2.
Yeah, it's
really
funny when
episodes.
He's like weird, when he's a criminal in like when he has illegal pandas and stuff. It's not so much funny when he's a sexual offender.
Yeah, or like just horribly depressed to an unfunny degree. Like there's a chasm, I guess, where it's really funny, and then after that, it's just unfunny.
Yeah, it's at some point you don't want to think that these characters will kill themselves or might rape somebody or is masturbating in the library.
It's best to keep that out of your comedy show about animated people.
Panda bears in boxes is hilarious.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Andale.
So yeah, I liked it, and then the episode, I didn't know what the episode was about, and then Homer, or rather, Dr. Hibbert actually gives Bart the shot, and Bart's ears swell up, and Bart is deaf. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, wow, they've not done this before. This is an original storyline.
And it was a
Bart
great way
goes
to lead
deaf.
into it.
Well,
it was one of those classic...
the whole Hibbert thing was a great way to lead into that.
Left turn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like the beginning 5 minutes are set up to this other thing that we're going to kind of toy with
A to B.
A to B, exactly. And I liked it. Bart is deaf. They got some great jokes out of it with the bullies, Jimbo and Dolphin Kearney come up to him. And he can't hear them, so he just stands there. And they're like, oh, no, he's standing his ground. He's realized all bullies are
cowards inside. It's like completely unnerved by that was good.
And then Willie comes out, and that was hysterical. Where Willie can read lips, and he's ranting about his mother at Starbucks and manure.
Whoever wrote this,
that was very
funny.
Had
a really good sense of how
I saw it was John Frink who wrote this one. And
he wrote What to Expect When Bart's Expecting.
Well, time has not been well to Mr. Frink then.
But he had a good sense of who the characters used to be. Like they were classic Hibbert type lines, classic Willie type. Willie getting so mad that him getting offended easily was great, and then B, the idea that Scotland is just this like horrible place where the Starbucks have manure,
and this just anger he has towards everyone. It's great. Like the first 10 minutes of this episode felt really authentic. Like it really, it felt like the 90s.
I don't like. I'm precarious. You know, I'm reluctant to say this is a classic. It felt like a classic episode because that was, you know, it's just such a high level of perfection. But at times it did, and at worst it felt like a season 10, season 9.
Right, which is still pretty good,
which
especially
is a very
compared
high
to
compliment to pay any
compared to what to expect when Bart's expecting or that 90s show.
And this is season 15, so it's already the Al Jean years. It's already well past Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, we're 4 years after that one already.
So, you know, it's still a little bit removed from whatever the show is now, this weird HD thing.
Yeah.
Which I
with the
consider
crazy
like
opening
a completely different
animations,
era.
the couch gags.
But it's still, it's far enough where we can be really surprised that it's. I'm curious to see the other season 15 episodes now.
Yeah.
There's a few I saw around that same time that I kind of remember and I don't remember them being anywhere good like that.
I think I've seen a couple of season 15 episodes actually. Two jump out at me just when I was looking at the list of what episodes are in this season. Simple Simpson is in this season, which I'm pretty sure is the one where he becomes Pie Man, where Homer is like a superhero. And I remember actually liking that one, though I haven't seen it in a good 6 or 7 years.
I remember the episode. I don't remember how.
Maybe we'll check that one out at some point.
Sure. I saw The Departed. I remember that was a straight up parody, which was interesting to see. I don't remember thinking he was all that great. I think it also has the one with Sarah Michelle Gellar as Bart's girlfriend from Juvenile Hall, which I think I remember liking.
That could be interesting.
Again, well, this was 10 years ago, so
yeah.
Any episodes I did see, it's been a while.
It's been a while, yeah.
Strong opening.
Strong opening, and I liked this idea. Bart is deaf, and I was like, oh, where are they going to go with this? And as it was revealed where they were going, I was like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Because I was hoping that we'd get a Bart episode that's very, I don't know, he's deaf, and so that changes the way he looks at the world, and it becomes kind of introspective, and there's humor to be mined of Bart not being able to hear.
Yeah, that's a great way to do a Bart episode. Bart Goes Deaf.
Exactly, yeah, Bart Goes Deaf, and, you know, I don't know, maybe there's like a talent show or something. I don't know what it was. we're not writing an episode, although we could.
No, you write Bart Goes Deaf.
Okay, Bart Goes
now.
Deaf. There's a talent show. He needs to hear, and he can't, and
everybody learns something
and it ends with Milhouse falling in poop somehow
in Scotland.
In Scotland, yeah.
All right. Well,
but yeah,
maybe we'll leave it to Frank.
Yeah, I guess. All right, we're not here to write episodes. We're just here to talk about why they're terrible. Like all great people on the internet.
Yeah. Give me your wallet, kid. We're gonna identity theft your ass. He's just standing his ground.
He knows that deep down, all bullies are cowards.
We're undone.
I know what you're hiding, lad. Willie's been deaf since the boiler explosion of '88, but I taught myself to read lips.
Morning, Willie.
What did you say about me, mother? For your information, her feet stink, 'cause she works in manure all day. But it's still the best damn Starbucks in Glasgow.
But yeah, I was excited. I was interesting because this was something I'd never seen before, and I was excited by that. And then it turns into this thing where Bart moons the flag.
Because he can't hear the national anthems playing.
Right, and I was just like, oh, all of this was just a really elaborate setup to get to this point.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a little much, because did you really need... It was strong stuff, but if you're going to go this direction in the episode, did you need to take this route to get there, I guess?
Yeah, especially, and we'll get to this because the third act was a real crazy mess.
Yeah.
I felt like if you're going to do a big episode like this, I mean, this is 2004. It probably went into production, like it was written and animated shortly after we started the war in Iraq.
Right.
So that's pretty heavy. It's still only 2.5 years from 9/11, which now doesn't, now it's like 9/11 feels a lot farther away, but still at that point, 2.5 years, it still was especially raw.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty heavy topic, and there was nothing really like that in the show's history, such a huge event happening while it was on. Like you could say like the Berlin Wall and Russia falling, but they never really did an episode about that.
No.
But there was no real big tragic thing. And Berlin Wall is, if anything, is positive, it falling. So there was really no big tragedy. It's not like they did an Oklahoma City bombing episode.
That would have been dark.
Yeah, and it was such a huge tragic thing where you can't say, oh, they shouldn't have do that because it's never been done before.
Right.
Obviously everybody's playing on new ground here after 9/11,
Yeah.
But, so if they want to do an episode that responds to that in a Simpsons way, I would support that. I would say they have every right to.
Yeah.
But this would be their, if maybe not their post 9/11. It was definitely more response to the
culture after 9/11,
afterwards.
to
But
the
it was,
kind of George W. Bush years of kind of
Which is,
you need to be super pro-American at all times.
And it's
otherwise
interesting
you're a
because
terrorist.
they were probably the first to do it because this was May 2004. I mean, we were in college. We were probably in pretty liberal communities. You were in Cornell. I was at NYU. I remember the real like anti-Bush, the Patriot Act is going too far kind of stuff. I remember that sentiment coming after Bush was reelected, which makes sense because otherwise he wouldn't have been reelected. But I remember
that's
it was
true.
like right when he lost, right when he won, when Kerry lost. I think that's when people started really going, you know what, maybe this was a
We
mistake.
got 4 more years. Civil liberties are kind of
clearly there was a
eroding.
lot of people against the war already, and responding to this response to 9/11. But that early on, I don't think it was as mainstream as to have a Simpsons episode.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, they, like we said, they were reacting to the climate of the time, and I think they were a bit ahead of the curve on picking up that stuff. So that's definitely a plus in favor of this episode. And I think they actually did a really good job in the big. Let me backtrack a little bit because I want to go back to the whole Bart being deaf storyline.
And we all want to go back to that storyline.
I don't know why I'm so attached to this idea. Oh yeah, Bart going deaf would make a great episode.
It's simple. It hasn't been done.
It was so original and fresh, and I wanted to see where they would take that. And instead, they took it into something that was
and
it was also fresh and original, but it was more high concept.
And it was brave, if anything, but it's also a lot easier to screw up. When Bart Goes to Deaf, if you can, it's a lot.
It's
less,
a more traditional episode, I guess.
Right. The 9/11 episode might not be so much.
Right. That's a harder sell, I guess.
Ice.
Yeah. But the episode slowly becomes about Homer. Bart is deaf, and then there's this flag thing, and that starts to become the A plot of the episode.
Yeah, everybody
Bart hates America,
and everybody hates Bart because he hates America.
Yeah. And then it slowly becomes a Homer thing because it's just like, oh, Homer is Bart's son.
Yeah.
Homer's Bart's dad.
There's one scene with the bullies again where they beat him up because it's like, oh, you hate this country with
right.
Bart.
And also Bart's hearing is just back. It just
yeah.
comes right back, which is it's not a story thing anymore.
Right. And that bully thing is the only time we see what Bart's life is like now. Like that could have even been an interesting episode.
We're done with Bart after that.
Yeah, what happens if you're accidentally labeled a
pariah?
pariah.
Bart was like, if Bart was a pariah in Springfield, what does that episode look like?
That would be a great
that would have
way
been good.
To lead from the Bart.
They went really, really big with it because they make. Okay, the Simpsons are pariahs in Springfield, and now Springfield is a pariah in America, and it's just like, how do you compensate for that? Right. You go crazy over the top American.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that in a moment.
It became this big comment on the culture where, if anything,
a quiet episode about Bart, I would have been more interested in watching.
It's hard. It's a lot.
I mean, that's
to
personal
say.
preference, though.
Yeah, and again, this is uncharted territory. A show, The Simpsons, no show had really at this point had to respond to something like 9/11 to try to get it all done in 20 minutes, with the first 5 minutes having completely nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do, where maybe the best thing would have been to make it a little bit more specific. Even Bart the Pariah might have been a story where if you do it through Bart's point of view, and have these big ideas about patriotism and going too far and stuff like that. If that's in a background supporting that story, the story of Bart the Pariah, then it might have worked, and it would have had a much bigger chance of working. But it not only became about Homer, which, like, who cares about what's Homer's reaction to Bart?
To Bart, exactly. We're one step away removed from the actual conflict.
Imagine if you did the episode with Stampy. What was
Stampy? Yeah, the elephant. Yeah.
No, not. I'm thinking Milhouse's girlfriend. What's her name? Samantha.
Milhouse's girlfriend, Stampy the elephant.
Stanky, right?
Yeah, Samantha Stanky.
So that's a great episode. And like it was Bart
because
loses
Milhouse
his
gets
best
a girlfriend,
friend.
and we look at it through Bart's perspective.
Imagine we look through it where it's like, how does Homer feel about Bart losing Milhouse to his first girlfriend?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah,
it just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. Yeah.
So on top of missing the 9/11 ball, you just have this.
That's
weird
the new title of the podcast: Missing the 9/11 ball.
You just have this weird extra filter that does no service, does a disservice.
Yeah, right. And you made a good point that if they had been more specific with it, I feel like they had a lot of good ideas. Like, oh, we want to skewer like the CNN talking head punditry, which they do in a pretty funny satirical scene with this Nate. What's his name? Nash Caster.
Yeah, I don't know if he was any.
I'm assuming that was just a one-off character.
Oh yeah,
he kind of reminded me like a Chris Matthews type.
Yeah,
although he's more liberal. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think he was a direct parody of anybody, which is good.
Just loud and missing the issue and just focusing on the minutia and blowing things up.
Like at one point he yells a question at Homer and then says, "Before you can answer," and then he yells.
Yeah, right. And he goads Marge into saying that like she hates Americans.
Right. Well, that was a great.
That was funny.
Yeah,
I liked that.
And I think it kind of there's a anger that was in this episode that must have been coming from the writers,
right?
An anger about going to Iraq and an anger about being labeled anti-patriotic to not be for this war.
Right.
And I loved when it seemed like their anger came through when Marge got fed up with the pundit and the punditry and all that, and she just goes, if hating loudmouth jerks who won't let you express your opinion is hating America, then yes, I hate Americans.
Yeah.
And that was just really funny.
And then everyone has their slack jawed, just like, oh.
Yeah. And
that was good.
The fact that it was Marge saying I hate America as opposed to Homer or Bart or even Lisa.
But that's another thing that could have been a whole episode.
Exactly.
Because they could have really dug into the media. I guess they kind of did with the Homer Badman episode where Homer is accused of sexual harassment. They kind of did that, I guess.
Political.
But right, exactly. Yeah. They could do it politically. They could do it through the lens of these 24-hour news networks.
A lot of different.
My point, though, that I wanted to make before, there's a lot going on in this episode. It seems like they had a lot of ideas for ways they could attack this issue, I guess, or even just they had a lot of ideas and they just put all of them into this episode.
Again, because it's a really complicated issue.
It's a complicated
with lots
issue,
of facets, and I just think it's too much I don't know if there is a way to do all of it in one episode.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to focus on small town patriotism. They're focusing on the media. They're focusing on detaining people in like a Guantanamo Bay type situation. They're focusing on immigrants and the French culture, I guess, kind of.
Yeah.
It's a lot going on. A lot of moving pieces in this episode.
Yeah. The best way, I really do think the best way would have been to do it has a background to like Bart the Pariah or any one of those facets,
or
Marge.
Even just an episode where something happens in Springfield, or it doesn't have to be Simpsons family connected.
Right.
Something happens that makes Springfield anti-American in the eyes of the media or whoever, and what's the town going to do to overcome that?
Yeah, because they changed their name to Libertyville,
and everything costs $17.76.
Yeah,
that was funny. That was a good idea. That was satire, and it was well done, I thought.
Right.
I could have seen more of that. That's like 4 episodes that could have been made from the ingredients in this episode, I guess.
The president announced today he is appointing warheads at...
Turn that off. This could destroy our town. Look what happened to Hitler City, North Carolina. If they hadn't changed their name to Charlotte, they'd be sunk.
Sir, conventions are pulling out of Springfield left and right. The Paprika Festival, Bandana Days.
Sir, we just lost the Adult Video Awards.
Not the Bonies.
I liked large portions of this episode. There were a lot of little moments, like maybe a scene would go on like a beat too long. So ultimately the Simpson family is taken away when they're in church. I don't even know why. I guess because Lisa quoted the Bill of Rights. And then the SWAT team kicks down the windows and comes in and takes them away.
I'm not sure why the SWAT team comes and get it. I don't know if it was a direct response to something Lisa said or to what Marge said she hates America. They didn't really make that
was not
clear.
Really that was not really clear.
They already decided.
But that's a minor quibble because other episodes we've watched
I mean, it's not
have just glossed over things like that.
It's not really a minor quibble because the story had already turned to. At first it went from Bart the Pariah, then it went to the Simpsons the Pariahs, then it went to Springfield the Pariah, and then it went back to just the Simpsons again. So structurally it doesn't really work because then now...
That's true, it's increasing and then they went a step back.
Yeah,
and
like
it's just
all of a sudden,
back to the Simpsons.
so Springfield isn't the enemy anymore, now it's back a step?
I guess if you want to go to the route where you're going to put them in prison and make jokes about that, you can't take all of Springfield and put them in prison. Although that would be a pretty good episode. Like in Arkham City.
Put them in a dome. Put them in a big...
hey, that might work.
Whew. So I guess we should move on to there because I do think the episode lost it when it did that weird shift to Homer's perspective.
Yeah, I agree.
Where it really lost it, where it really started to feel like a new crappy episode, like the episodes that this whole podcast is based on, was when they were arrested and sent to what I thought was Guantanamo Bay, but It was apparently Alcatraz. I don't even know if Guantanamo was in the news at this point. I mean, everybody had orange jumpsuits.
Yeah, I mean, they were
seemed
definitely
to be a direct reference.
To us in 2014. It's definitely evoking Guantanamo.
Yeah.
I guess Guantanamo was around that time.
I mean,
when did Harold and Kumar go to Guantanamo Bay come out?
Well,
That's how I measure everything that's happened in American history. When did Harold and Kumar address that? I think it actually did come out around that time. But anyway,
maybe. Yeah. So I. This is
where we'll put an end.
All right.
No, I do want to say one thing. No, I lost it. Keep editing this out.
Okay, here. All right, so they're at Guantanamo Bay. They're in this prison, and now it's this other thing.
Oh yeah, I know.
This is where the show became. All right, let's start over. So this is edit. All right, we're coming in back now. So when they are arrested and they are put in this island prison in Alcatraz, I think this is where the show really became. I mean, it was already there to begin with, but this is where it really just became the writers talking from the soapbox about like look
about
Bush,
their opinions on the Bush's
policies
America.
are no good.
Yeah,
and which I agree with completely.
I mean, it's fine for them to do that. I didn't mind that. I thought some of it was funny, but
some of it was funny.
It loses a bit when
it was heavy.
You take the plot away, and
it was heavy-handed to a point where I don't know. Again, you're talking about like 9/11 and post 9/11 and the Iraq War and the Patriot Act and that stuff where subtlety will help you get your point across. It's not really. I don't know, it just
people don't generally like
ham-fisted.
being clubbed over the head with your message.
I mean, I do like...
Even if there is pretty decent jokes in it.
Yeah, and there was ways... like I liked when they had like Elmo in prison.
Yeah.
And they had other people... And then they had a terrorist who was bringing bombs
I wish they wouldn't put the funny ones in with the real ones.
Yeah, Bart just like, I wish they wouldn't put the real ones in with the joke ones.
Yeah.
And it's like, I like that. I don't know if
funny.
I like that more as a comment on their being ham-fisted, heavy-handed, or if it was more a comment on the writing of the Simpsons jokes.
Yeah, I feel like it was more about the writing, but it was a jarring moment because then you're like, oh yeah, terrorism's real.
Yeah.
While I'm watching this comedy episode to take my mind off of how horrible the world is.
So like that was nice. Although there was also a really weird racist Muslim.
Yeah, I wanted to bring us back to that.
Yeah.
That was odd. So on the show, when the Simpsons had become pariahs in America for being allegedly anti-American, on TV they're showing how America hates them, but they cut to an unspecified Arab country that's like whooping and hollering in the streets and holding up pictures and being like, I love the Simpsons, yeah, down with America.
Yeah.
That was weird.
And like,
I think even
it wasn't just, I mean, at first
at the time, was that weird?
Well, the angle of it and everything, it really did look like those videos of Muslims cheering in the streets about 9/11 and stuff, but it was also like, they were doing like that, and like, that's
that
the
was
stuff
a little
where it's a little,
if not racist, it's a gray area. It made me feel uncomfortable.
And it was also implying, I don't know, again, that maybe because this was happening, there were videos of Muslims cheering, but you know, there was a context around it, whereas there was no context here. It just kind of seemed like, I guess, all Muslims hate
America, basically.
And they cheer for the Simpsons because the Simpsons hate America.
Right. It could just be us watching it, 10 years later, seeing it that way.
It's hard. It's really hard to come at it from a more neutral perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we were in a different world then.
Yeah.
Not that that's okay. I mean, it was just, maybe it was referencing a specific thing that has been lost now.
I mean, I feel like if you're on The Simpsons, you got millions of viewers, maybe you should try to be a little bit more careful with stuff like that. But then again, this is the show that's been doing these homophobic gay jokes, of which there were none in this one.
Yeah, that's no horses, no gay jokes.
Yeah, they decided,
we're doing well.
No
gay horse jokes.
Unfair Muslim thing.
And that's it. We'll just be racist today, not homophobic.
And there were plenty of donkeys in this episode.
That's true, there were. Oh, was that
what you say about my mother?
Was that supposed to be like a subtle Republican thing?
I don't think so.
Is donkey basketball an actual thing that happens? Because
I think it might be.
When that was brought up, I was like, "What is this?" But maybe it is real, and they were just including it.
Right. I don't think it has. If it is a reference to Democrats, I can't see what the reference would be.
It's just saying like,
teachers are on the shoulders of Democrats.
I have no idea. Maybe. All right, we're probably reaching on that one.
The best part of that whole scene was when Lenny had a Dole Kemp 96 tattoo.
That was also funny. That was good.
Although it did have here's like a more smarter thing. Yeah, if there was one thing you could sum this episode up, would be its response to the patriotism and the way the government used that patriotism. There was a great, when everybody first is shocked that Bart is mooning the flag, and Lenny has the flag, and he's like, that's terrible. The Texan says, that's a disgrace to the flag my granddaddy fought to rebel against.
Yeah, that was a very funny line.
Like, that's smart, because it's true. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of people in the South and in Texas. I couldn't tell if he was talking about the Civil War or the Texan War for Independence, which either way, his granddaddy would be way too young for that.
Right.
But it was just interesting to see how people kind of pick and choose their political leanings.
Exactly.
I mean, smart.
There were a lot of really good, smart points in this episode. So
And I just wish they, didn't.
It didn't totally come together as a whole for me.
Right.
It sounds like not so much for you either.
Like, then there's the old man, the crazy old man. I'm the last registered Democrat. Tax and spend.
Now, that was definitely on the nose,
Yeah,
and just
exactly.
like, you're totally right. Just them on the soapbox being like, hey, let's be really obvious with what we want to say. The musical number. Let's talk about that.
I was about to bring that up.
I hated it.
Shocking that
Not a surprise.
Dan Mulhall, hated the musical number from a late Simpsons.
Yeah, it was. It's a constant trope with the Simpsons to just end with a musical number out of nowhere.
Now that's a parody of Blues Brothers,
which I've never seen. I picked up that it was a parody of it,
Yeah.
but I've never seen the movie, so I don't have any kind of affection for the Blues Brothers.
Right. But the actual musical, it felt like a typical Simpsons musical where they were all singing like pretty. Like lines.
Honestly, I've forgotten the song already. I just remember it happened.
Yeah, they were just really on the nose, lame lyrics, and to be honest, like it's not even funny singing. Like Bart and Lisa, Homer can get away with it, but like when Marge and Bart and Lisa sing, it just feels like ugh.
It's just like it feels ugh.
Yeah, like
I
made that reference a couple weeks ago with the karaoke, the bad karaoke. It sounds like the girl who takes karaoke too seriously and thinks she's good.
Right, yeah.
And that's what it feels like, where it just doesn't work.
Just Marge never really sang a lot back in the day.
No, I liked when she almost starts singing.
Yeah, in the Bordello episode, Bart After Dark. I love that because that's a good episode. I don't love that song is funny, and I like what it does, but I don't like the fact that the episode ends with a big musical number. But I love that Marge shows up late, and then she's trying to sing her own song, and no one cares.
They cut her off
Yeah,
immediately. She
that's
did
great.
do Streetcar, which has my
true, yeah.
favorite musical number possibly ever in The Simpsons, which is Stella.
Yeah, can't you hear me yell?
Like that's, but that's funny because it's like taking a famous, serious, melodramatic scene
and making it in this big rock opera, basically.
But yeah, no, this was kind of just lame, and I think it was they were singing that they were really big patriots and that they loved America, like to win over the guards.
Yep.
So there wasn't anything to it. It was just bad.
It was just a way to get them out of the jail that they were in.
So then they escape. They were going to get shot because they were swimming away. But
that would have been a dark change for the episode. Imagine Bart just gets shot.
But they're not, because the guard thinks Homer's a walrus because he's eating a seal.
which was funny.
Right.
But it's another one of those things where it's you get the humor at the expense of making the character too cartoony.
Yeah, it's funny because Homer is fat and eats
Homer's
a
a big fat guy, but Homer's not going to eat a seal in real life.
in like 3 seconds.
Yeah. And it's a great joke, but it takes away from the realism aspect.
Yeah, and so then they get rescued by the French.
Yes.
Because as everybody knows, the French hate America.
Yeah, which I thought was a little lazy, just to rely on that like cultural stereotype, like, oh, the French hate America.
Right, and then now they're in France.
But that wasn't so bad when they were in France. I kind of liked that, Homer, instead of being a big fat loudmouth in France, he's a gourmand.
Yeah, and they have him dressed like a French guy, and it works.
It did work. He did look good. Like he reminded me of Gerard Depardieu in his later years. But I also liked one thing where Marge is wearing her Chanel suit from the season 7 episode, Scenes from the Class Struggle in Springfield. And I liked that, here they're like $5 for $1, and she's using one for a napkin.
Yeah.
That was a funny callback that was very specific to Marge, because obviously that suit meant a lot to her in that episode, and now she's like, in France, it's so cheap.
I hate to burst your bubble. I do think that dress has made several appearances.
God damn it.
I don't think that was the first or the last.
Well, in this episode, I liked it.
I might be wrong, but I feel like I've seen it a few times.
Unlike episodes like that 90s show that we talked about last week, I like episodes that kind of respect the characters, histories, not that it has to be this set-in-stone continuity, but when you can bring up something that references an earlier episode and it makes sense and it's funny.
That's great.
I like it.
More power to you.
Yeah.
So what I didn't like about the French scene, which was only 40 seconds long at that.
Yeah.
They decide, you know what, we miss America. And what I do like
that seemed very sudden, just because it was the end of the episode and I had to get
Lisa
back.
has a line which I do think is pretty smart and gets to home, where it's like, we have our problems with the country, we don't like the way it's run, but all our stuff is there.
Right.
And it's like I could relate to that. It's like, I'm constantly criticizing both sides of but I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, right.
When people were like, well, they moved to Canada, I was like, no, I'm going to stay in America.
I'm obviously going to stay in America.
So
I don't want to be Canadian.
Yeah, so I like that. I like that line, but it did seem like it was too neat of a all right, let's
It was very
France
just
is nice.
hit the reset button. We got to get them back to America. Although it kind of doesn't, because there's this weird. I don't know. It's just a change where all of a sudden they want to go back to America, even though America was horrible to them.
Right.
And then it's this weird thing referencing 1920s immigration at Ellis Island.
They go back to Ellis Island and they're dressed up as like Fievel,
right.
19th century
like Grandpa
immigrants.
Simpson was back in the day in the flashback to that.
Which. Yeah, and then they decide they're
Fievel goes west.
and they decide they're gonna restart their lives. Like Homer's gonna become a crooked cop or something.
Right.
And it's just, which again could have been its whole other episode. Once Upon a Time in America spoof. Or whatever.
Right.
So that's its own thing.
And they get there and they say, "Oh, what's your name? Oh, Homer Simpson. All right, you're gonna be the Simps from now on."
And that is the line that I said I wanted you to watch this episode.
Yeah. Basically the last line of the episode.
The very last line of the episode. For whatever reason, when I saw it 10 years ago, I just think it's a really funny line that holds up to this day.
Yeah.
And what's funny is I didn't think it held up that much. I thought it was a little. I wasn't like, oh, maybe it wasn't. I think it's because I built it up too much.
Maybe.
But I just love the idea that the Simpsons, they Americanize the Simpsons,
the American
which is
name.
already and I just love the idea of the Simps. And it's just the delivery is really funny, and then Homer's like, oh, that saves time, and it just even I have a lot of Simpsons files on my computer and stuff. And I just call it Simps. I do that a lot. Anytime I need to shorten the Simpsons, I just
call it Simps.
It amuses me to it's
a lot quicker.
Yeah, I like that line. I don't know. It was a little less funny, I think, because I just went on public record saying that I love that line. So now, of course, it has to not be as good.
Right now, you gotta hold up with it. Yeah.
If anything, I might have liked the line with Marge going. I wish they wouldn't put the joke ones in with the real ones.
I think that might have been the strongest line of the episode.
But I don't know. So, sorry, guys, if you didn't think that joke was worth watching this episode.
Yeah, those people have already long stopped listening.
That's the line?
I thought this was we. This is P. I don't know.
What?
I have no idea. Maybe we should edit that part out.
That's staying in. If I'm stuck with my choice of favorite joke,
all right.
You're leaving in your Peach reference.
That is fine. That is fine.
You traitors, pipe down. You're all here because you hate freedom.
I'm here because I said imported wines are better than Napa Valley.
Yeah? Well, why don't you take a Napa?
Oh! My only crime was driving a truck full of explosives in from Canada.
I don't know why they put the real ones in with the joke ones.
Well, I think that's about it. This episode, if I had to describe it, it's just a downward slope. I thought it really started off very, very strong. When we first started watching this episode, I was like, wow, this is really good.
It was. I feel like we're really blowing it up, but it was. I'm sure, who knows? Maybe it's a Simpsons thing. Maybe if we watch it again.
Yeah, maybe. We'll be like, oh, Dr. Hibbert in a montage.
But even if we're exaggerating, it still was way stronger than it had any right to be at this point.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to say about it? I liked when Luigi did a little dance for selling pizza for $17.76 a slice. But that was kind of just a random
observation. There's a few random, again, back to that Dr. Hibbert, that great sequence. There was one more line on another great old Hans Moleman.
When he says he needs a kidney.
Yeah, Hibbert's like, I'm going to go cancel all my appointments. I'm going after Bart.
Yeah.
And Hans Moleman's in the waiting office like, I really need my kidney.
Yeah, that was good.
That was like classic Hans Moleman
Yeah, that's
joke.
exactly how he should be used. The world shits on
John
him.
Frink wrote this episode.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. If anybody in the comments wants to tell me, because I'm too lazy to look this up.
Yeah.
But John Frink is obviously, the character John Frink was named after this guy, John Frink. So he
But didn't he-
But he didn't start writing episodes
Right, yeah.
until well after.
That's what I was going to say,
Like,
yeah.
He didn't write any classic episodes.
Right.
He's,
Is it just a coincidence that his name is also John Frink?
maybe, or does he was he friends with the guys?
Yeah, I
and
don't
it took
know.
him 12 years. So can somebody in the comments fill us in on that?
We're
'Cause-
far too lazy to just Google the answer to
I
this right
know, I
now.
really-
We'd rather wait however
Yeah,
long it
literally,
takes.
I got Wikipedia in front of me with the
Yeah,
with
but,
the John Frink. All I have to do is click it. And
But we're not going to do that, all right? That's not what we're about, doing
We're
things.
hotshot podcast.
That's exactly right. This
We
is
don't, we don't do our own Wikipedia.
already our 4th episode.
Yeah, so
Oh, man.
he wrote this, which was not terrible.
Yeah.
The beginning was great, but he also wrote the Bart pregnant teacher one, and that was awful. So
Yeah,
it's just
so
funny that
10
obviously
years
10
between,
years,
yeah.
But it's interesting. I mean, then again, Al Jean wrote some of my all-time favorite episodes of Alf.
Did he actually write for Alf?
Yeah, that's where he got his start.
I
That's
did
where,
not know that.
That's where him and Mike Reese.
Yeah.
That's where they got all their.
That's
Alf
where they became
references
like a
and
writing team.
The Alf Pogs. I might be wrong. I'm pretty sure I'm right.
I just want to point out that's probably the first moment where someone's actually learned something on this podcast. You heard it here, folks. Al Jean and Mike Reese worked on Alf.
Yeah, well, I did mention that on my Alf cast, which is also called Potter and Family.
Confusingly
It's a little
enough.
confusing.
I've been meaning to listen to your Alf cast. I'm sorry I haven't.
I was about to do a bad Alf impression, but
Willie! I'm not above doing a bad impression.
well, thank you for doing it for me.
I need a cat.
I'm trying to think of on the spot a funny Alf pun, but I'm now it's just
What if there was
dead air.
What if there was an Alf crossover with Happy Days where Alf met Ralph Malph?
Did you just come up with that?
I
or
did
is that
just
a
come up
thing?
with that.
Oh, well, it's timely.
Yeah.
No, anyway, so Al Jean, my point
You should cut all of this.
my point is Al Jean wrote a great, he wrote great Simpsons episodes. He was a showrunner with Mike Reese for great seasons. I think
Yeah.
it was 3 and 4 maybe.
And they created a great show
And
together.
The Critic. Yeah, the Critic.
Yeah.
I think the Critic is commentary, DVD covers is probably where I learned about Alf. But it all comes full Melmac.
We should. Nice, yeah.
Yeah, no, so anyway, Al Jean obviously wrote good ones, and now he's been the showrunner. He's a showrunner of this episode. He's been the showrunner for at least 10 years, and the shows are awful. He's presided over the worst episodes.
Well, hey, we don't know that all of them in the past 10 years are awful. We've only seen 2.
Yeah, exactly. But, no, so my point is John Frink could write a good one, write a bad one, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just interesting that...
Now, I don't really know a lot about the background of the show. Like,
Yeah, I have a very...
I couldn't tell you who wrote some of my favorite episodes. I know John Swartzwelder wrote a lot of them, and I know he's a very reclusive kind of guy.
I don't know. There's a really good Simpsons book with the... what's the term for it? Where they
The
interview
unauthorized
everybody.
biography?
Yeah, where they interview everybody and
Like an oral history.
Oral history. That's what I'm looking for.
The John Ortfed
Yes,
book, I believe.
that was a great book. I read
Not to name drop, but we're Facebook friends.
Hey, there you go.
We were on a podcast together once. It's pretty cool.
Was it the Alf podcast?
It was your Alf podcast. I'm surprised you don't remember.
I usually do those drunk. No, so I have some knowledge. I don't remember most of it. No, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head who wrote what episodes or anything like that.
Yeah, and I don't know if is that something people like. If you want to hear us talk more about the behind the scenes and you know, I don't know,
or talk about it in the forums, I'd get some insight. I mean, and I'm sure Shakespeare had a couple of duds 10 years after Romeo and Juliet. You know? It's just, or maybe he's dead. I don't know Shakespeare's timeline.
Well, he's dead now. We know that much.
It's not really a point. It's a point I'm making. It's not really a point I'm defending or anything. It's just interesting to note.
It is interesting, yeah. I wonder who wrote Battlestar Galactica. I wonder if John Frink wrote all of these episodes. It's just the Frink cast.
Picking on me?
He's listening. He's our only listener right now. He's just waiting for us to say something nice.
He's shedding
about
a single tear like Daryl Strawberry.
John, we liked the opening to this episode.
The one part he probably didn't.
Yeah, he's like, oh, yeah, Mike Reese wrote that part.
All right, so speaking of John Frink episodes, what to expect when Bart's expecting, and then also Battlestar Galactica and That 90s Show. That's the 4 we've done so far in this podcast.
So are you segueing us over into ranking this particular episode?
Yes, but mid-segue, I'm going to go off into another 10-minute tangent about a fake podcast.
All right, let's do it.
So anyway, the
Tangent Cast. It's nothing but tangents.
So I've got a home improvement podcast. No. All right.
All right, no. So if you've been listening to our first 3 episodes, first of all, thank you. We hope you're enjoying what you've been plugging into your ear
Much
holes.
appreciated.
But no, we've been ranking the episodes as we've been watching them. You can check out that list on our website, where you can also suggest episodes for us to watch.
Can we say the website now, even though we haven't come up with it yet, and just like alter it in? Like,
sure, it's Mr. Black.
Officer Steve Grabowski.
You will be charged a large lateness penalty
with his wife, Hillary.
But anyway, we are ranking the episodes, and currently, Saddlesore Galactica, our very first episode, sits at the very bottom of the list.
Yes.
A dubious distinction if ever there was one.
Specific reason.
For specific reasons, we hate those frigging jockeys with the magic powers. And they sing a song, which doubly, if there's 2 things I really hate about the later episodes, it's the songs and the breaking of realism with nonsense.
Yeah, and that's both.
So that's why that's at the bottom. And so where do we want to place Bart-Mangled Banner, today's episode?
That opening was really strong. And I know we gave points to the Bart one, the Bart's Expecting one, because it had a strong, older feeling opening. But this blew that one away.
Yeah, I mean,
I have to say, it's the best worst one.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
I think hands down. I really didn't like the third act. I really don't like a lot of the political stuff.
Didn't like where it went. Some jokes aside, the end was not the best. It really went off the rails a little bit as far as A to B to C storytelling. But I'm with you. I think this is the best episode that we've talked about so far. And I would almost even recommend people watch this episode. If you didn't watch it, this was probably really boring.
I recommended it because of that one joke that apparently isn't that funny.
But there are other jokes that are. Even if you just watch the first 10 minutes, I think that's a solid
There's
time.
probably like 15 at least off the top of my head really good lines in this.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
all of Willie's lines and just.
I mean, usually, the past couple of episodes that we've done, it'll be like, oh, I like this line and this other line.
Yeah, that's
But
it,
this one, it was just wall to wall, especially in the beginning.
And it's season 15, which is farther away from the good years than season 11 Saddlesore was.
Yeah.
So So it has nothing to do with how far away from the episodes we like.
This makes me optimistic that we're going to find some other gems.
Yeah, you think we really don't have a knowledge of season 15. I've seen a lot of them, but I don't remember them. Do you think this might have been a glowing trend, or is it going to be like these here and there?
I don't remember who told me this, but someone said season 15 was kind of a standout season. Like 14 wasn't so good. Was it you who said
No,
this?
it's probably John Ordfed.
Yeah, it probably was my great friend John Ordfed, the author.
But we'll find out eventually. We'll watch some more. There's a couple I saw that I really want to check out at some point.
I do know one episode from season 15. Although now that I'm saying that, maybe it's season 16. It's the one where Bart goes to fat camp, and it's an Albert Brooks episode, and that one I think is just a great episode.
I'm curious. I've seen it. I don't remember it. I remember not being crazy about it.
Maybe we should watch that one.
I love Albert Brooks.
I'm a big fan.
Know you're a huge Albert Brooks fan, and I feel like he's not enough to elevate an episode, so that'll be fun to watch.
It's been a while since I've seen that one too, but at least if I remember it correctly, it does have a pretty straightforward story. Like it doesn't go on these weird tangents. It doesn't talk about Alf podcasts.
God, our podcasts are mimicking the awful structures.
Yeah, really.
The episodes we've.
That's not intentional, people.
It's just rubbing off on us.
It's just we're watching too many terrible episodes.
All right, so we'll do that.
All right, so Bart-Mangled Banner, the new number 1 on our list, meaning it is the best worst episode ever, and. I don't know. I think that about wraps it up.
All right. Do you want to plug trivia as we usually do? Maybe,
absolutely. If you're in
a now that they probably have a general idea of what it is right now.
Sure. If you're in the Brooklyn area, you should come out first Thursday of every month to Woohoo Classic Simpsons Trivia. It's a trivia night that I am the co-host of with my friend Dan. Not confusing at all that we have the same name. And we ask questions about the 90s episodes of the show. It's pretty difficult. It's pretty cutthroat, and it's a lot of fun. And you should come check it out. We give out prizes. If you Google around, you can find us. Check us out.
And I'd like to also throw in a plug. I do Alf trivia
in
my living room by myself. No one yet has shown up, but just Google it. And
all right. You may get some takers on that Alf trivia. People love Alf. You could probably get Max right here if you promise him certain things.
There will not be prizes.
Max Wright was the father on Alf.
Yeah, just in case.
Just in case.
But we can't be using our Alf shorthand around here. Not on our Simpsons podcast.
So we're obviously going to do an episode of the Alfcast next. But yeah, I think that about wraps it up.
All right. Thanks again for listening.
Yeah.
And we don't know what we'll be watching next week.
Yeah.
Again, throw us some suggestions.
Yep, definitely. We'd love to get your suggestions. We are worst episode ever. Remember, the acronym is WE.
So next time you want to, if you can't remember where to find us, just Google WE.
Yeah, we're the first thing that comes up, I'm sure.
Thanks, guys.
Well, kids, this is the first chapter of our brand new lives in America.
Name?
Simpson?
From now on, you're the Simps.
That'll save time. Now, kids, it'll take us a while to assimilate. I'll start out as a cop, and with time, become a dirty cop.
I think I'm going to like this America.
Everywhere around the world, they're coming to America. Every time that flag's unfurled,